Hey everybody, I know what you're thinking. If you saw the title of this video, you've done this crap before, haven't you? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. My top 20 favorite movies of all time. You see, here's the thing. If you already know from my older videos, I just like to do this every year. Every single year, I like to think of one list of my favorite movies. Doesn't matter how long the list is, it just matters if I choose what my favorite movies of all time are. And that's what I'm doing. I started this sort of in 2019 for this channel of top 10 favorite movies of all time. Then in 2020 last year, I did top 40 favorite movies of all time. That was pretty big. This year, top 20. Yeah, I'm not increasing at all. I'm just going decreasing. Top 20. A simple top 20 list that will be a two-part special. So I'll have my top 20 from 20 to 11 today. And in about 2 weeks, my top 10 favorite of all time. I know what you're thinking. Again, I've done this already. But you see, that's just like a tradition I like to do. I like to take every year and do one favorite movie of all time list per year. So you know the rules. My opinion, movies I consider to be my personal favorite. Just have the things I personally enjoy. And remember, if you think this list is way too similar than the last one, just pretend this is my first one. Because again, it's a tradition, and sometimes my opinions don't always change. So if you find this to be too similar, then either hate on me or try to pretend that this is my first favorite movie of all time list I've ever done. With that being said, we're going to get this list started. These are my top 20 favorite movies of all time. Part 1 today, part 2 in 2 weeks. Let's get part 1 started. Field of Dreams. Let's talk about Field of Dreams. If you haven't heard of this movie, I feel sorry for you. Now, it's weird to think of this as one of my personal favorites, but let me tell you why. It's because of its baseball culture. If you don't already know, baseball is my all-time favorite sport. It just seems to have the most fun to me. And there's been a ton of movies to represent the sport as well. There's great ones like The Sandlot, The Bad News Bears, but one I think is my personal favorite is Field of Dreams. Why? Because it has the best moral message. All the other baseball movies I've seen were good and great and all, but they just seem to get too much humor out of the way. I just don't feel like they're going to put in the baseball sport the way we all were thinking, like watching an actual baseball game or something. With Field of Dreams, you get everything that makes a good baseball movie. You get the comedy, you get the family get-togethers, you get the drama, and of course, you get the baseball playing. It just seems to fit all of those categories into the sport. Just makes the movie feel the most interesting for baseball. I don't know. All of those baseball movies are fun to watch. Every baseball movie is fun to watch to me. But with Field of Dreams, you get a message. You get humor. You get actual family fun time. You get a film that can just combine everything you would want to see in a baseball movie and it gives it to you. I just find this film to be the most enjoyable for all the stuff it gives us. Again, it's weird to think of me for this movie, but it's just number 20. We have a whole list to go to. But yeah, Field of Dreams, it's a lot for me, okay? I honestly, it's just a lot for me. Inside Out. Alright, this is another weird choice. In Pixar, we all like to consider Pixar to be the best animated studio, and you know what? Yeah, I agree, it's my favorite animated studio of all time. It created such fine films, and I'm putting Inside Out in the top 20 list as one of my favorite films ever made, because it's one of Pixar's best work. It really is. Inside Out actually does something that no other film studio would know how to do. And I might just be being too nice to Pixar, but I honestly feel like this is an idea no other film studio could do just as well. Like no other film studio could think of the idea just so perfectly and so well written. What Inside Out is, it takes some sort of idea that most people wouldn't consider to take not so seriously, an idea that would never think of being too childish-like or weird, and just make it weird and colorful and childish and stuff. And you know what? I like that. I like that Pixar is doing that. It's what I love about Pixar. It takes some weird ideas and just makes them fun. And Inside Out's a great example. It actually makes this movie fun. So yeah,
it's one of my favorite films out there. It just has that kind of message that most movies that would try to focus on the same idea just wouldn't put together. Something I don't know if I would see be done by DreamWorks or Sony, or even for a live action adult film. I don't really think I could see anything from this. So yeah, that's what makes Pixar do it the best. Stand By Me. Alright, this is here's one movie you could represent for my looks. Stand By Me is a movie based off of a Stephen King book. Stephen King is by everyone considered to be the best author out there. Alright, probably not the number one best, but in my opinion, but he is actually my favorite author of all time because of all the good work he's done. The movie was made by Rob Reiner, one of my favorite directors out there. And Stand By Me, it does something great. Another idea that's I mostly like to love watching, especially in cinema, is the idea of having a bunch of kids go on their own adventure. Like a bunch of random kids doing a big adventure without any of their parents and getting involved. Or even a movie where their parents aren't even shown. I don't know if that would work, but that's what Stand By Me does. It takes that idea and does it themselves. It's a movie about 4 kids who go out to try and find a dead body so they can try to cover it and then report. Also, as well as learning new things about their futures as well. It's a movie that just feels like the best buddy film. I mean, it could be random to most people, but that's why I love it. How random it is. The movie's so random just by how much it tries to throw at us. Just has to take an entire hour and a half long and just have it be 4 kids talking about themselves, talking to each other, being the fun 80s kind of teens they can be. Well, actually, the film takes place in the 50s, but for watching in the 80s, it works. And yes, Stand By Me definitely does that in a good way. I always admire this to be not one of the best movie based off a Stephen King book. And I know it's weird to just bring Stephen King's credit in without Rob Reiner's help, but Rob Reiner's done a little too much. I'm not going to talk about his amazing overall career right now. Nor should I talk about Stephen King's. I don't know what I'm doing. Titanic. Alright, this one's odd. A lot of people consider Titanic to be the kind of movie that a girl would cry over. Something like, the whole sayings on the memes that girls cry during Titanic, boys cry during this other movie. But, for a boy like me, especially a Star Wars Marvel boy, Titanic is definitely that great of a movie. Why? Well, because I'll admit it is something to cry for. Even as a boy, this movie can be sad. Yeah, I'm serious. I cry over this movie, and I've seen a lot, so yeah, that's saying a lot. But yeah, Titanic actually does something like that. See, it takes the classic tale of how the Titanic sunk from 1912 and makes a movie out of it. Not just they don't just make the movie. They added a new little bit to it. Like they add a romance story to it. They make 2 new characters, the main ones, just to make the whole moment of the Titanic sinking even sadder to watch on a movie. And believe me, it was sad, the overall story of the Titanic sinking, but adding in new characters and stuff just seems to be an impressive idea because it helps make the movie feel more like a movie, not just a documentary or anything. Actual made fantasy film. Not a lot of movies would do something like that, especially today. Nowadays, every movie based on a true story just has to be exactly like that true story. That no new characters, no new ideas. It has to actually be that true story. But with Titanic, you're getting something really unique, as well as, of course, accurate. But again, I shouldn't be talking. It's weird for me to say it. Oh well, it's still a great movie. I still enjoy it. Beauty and the Beast. This is another film you all are probably not expecting to hear me talk about. I mean, you look at me in person, you see the stuff I like to talk about. You see me going through Star Wars stuff and Marvel stuff, as well as of other stuff, and I'm over here calling Beauty and the Beast one of my favorite films ever. Because it is. I don't care who it's trying to be meant for. I love it personally. I grew up with this movie a lot when I grew up. Like, I know this movie, we got this movie mainly just for my sister to grow up for, but ironically, I seem to have more love for this movie than she does. At least from my know. She has love for this movie, but ironically, so do I. This movie just actually does a unique Disney tale. I mean, it is based off of a made-up folktale, but no other Disney film released before had their film represented the best, the most colorful, most vibrant type. Just to me, that's what Beauty and the Beast is. It is vibrant, it's colorful, it's cute, it's fun, it's really emotional. It's just got all those kind of elements the animated Disney universe would have. A universe that I don't even think any other animated company, well, maybe Pixar, except, I don't know, would have. And another thing another thing you might wonder when you think of me talking about this is when I talk about how much I despise the remake. Okay, I don't even want to bring up the remake in this video. I shouldn't. So I shouldn't have brought it up. No, we're not talking about that movie. That remake is garbage. This film will always be a true idea that Disney just has never done before, and maybe won't ever do again. Hopefully it could. Maybe it would be nice if they did again, but they probably won't. Like, come on, this movie's so great. They probably won't. The Incredibles. Another animated film, and it's Pixar. What do you look at that? Another Pixar movie. Yes, Incredibles is one of my favorites. You could see some relationship with me in this movie, but overall, you're just gonna see me talking about an animated kids movie when I should be talking about all those other cool, kick-ass stuff a teen would like. Look, I'm going for my entire opinions, and for my entire opinions, or whatever, Incredibles belongs on this list, okay? Now, this movie is great. It has kind of the same idea I talked about when I was talking about Finding not Inside Out. Did I say Finding Nemo? I need to stop waiting for Pixar. No, this film's idea of why I love it, it's the same idea Inside Out have. Not with the whole same story, but same idea to the story. The movie takes the whole superhero idea. You know how at the time many superhero movies were trying to become huge successes. Because at the time, really the only superhero movies people remember being big hits were Batman, Superman, X-Men, Spider-Man. Incredibles came out, and this movie didn't try to fill in as one of the biggest box office hits, even though it was. But instead just tried to, take the superhero name and find a fun new way for Pixar to represent it. And they represented it pretty well. Look, I watched this movie so many times. Even as a teen, I could watch this movie a lot. And still think of it as something Pixar will always be known for. Other than if you see any other Pixar movies on this list. If you don't see any other Pixar movies on this list, then this is the film that describes Pixar the greatest. And will always will. Hopefully. Ready Player One. Yeah, I know, it's weird to hear me. A lot of people just don't seem to give this movie the respect that I would give it. Yeah, it's weird that I personally think this movie is that great. Why? Well, I just find its crossover and gimmicks to be so interesting. Now, look, I guess you could argue the film just tries to represent too much pop culture, too over-exaggerating. Most people would say they're just forcing their pop culture references, but even if they are, they do it the way I wanted to do it. Because I always don't like when they're forcing pop culture references, but for a movie like this, when they do force pop culture references, they work because they're still able to throw other pop culture references in to the story. If they're trying to, create something like a futuristic story. Because, movies like Blade Runner try to predict the future. To me, this movie predicts the future the best. It just seems to make the most sense. It just seems to feel the most watchable out of any of those films. Just more watchable than I thought. Maybe that's it. Because if you saw my list of movies that exceeded my expectations, this was on here. And yeah, this really did exceed my expectations. It always will. Ready Player One. And I'm sorry. I know I probably shouldn't call it one of my favorites. It's a very odd, obscure kind of movie, but I'm gonna call it that. You can't stop me. This movie created something I wanted to see in it, and it gave me that perfectly. Really did. I don't know. I'm not gonna wanna ever have to not like this movie anymore. That's never gonna have to happen. It shouldn't happen. I should always love this movie the same way. The Lion King. Okay, remember when I said Beauty and the Beast did something I don't really think any other Disney movie can do in the future? I lied. The Lion King did it. By God, they did it. We all know how much Disney likes to make movies based off of books or folktales or fantasy adventures. Well, guess what Lion King did? Something unique. Yes, The Lion King did something unique. It didn't take inspiration from a fairy tale or any other kind of book or something. It took its own inspiration. It did its own thing. No other animated Disney film did that before. And yes, the Lion King did it, and it did it the greatest. This movie is a childhood I'm always going to think of. I think of this movie a lot, and I always will. It creates the best Disney's done. So yeah, this now is the greatest picture Disney has given me. I'm sorry, Beauty and the Beast, but I found Lion King now. I was going to respect you the best, but now Lion King's out. You're just going to have to move out of the corner for a bit. I'm just going to have to talk about Lion King so much. So, here's one thing I do want to talk about outside of the whole Lion King idea, because a lot of us like to bring up so much of how the Lion King gave us the remake. I shouldn't talk about the remake since it's not here, but a lot of people call the remake bad. I actually like the remake. Now let me tell you why. It knows what it's being based on. The Lion King will always be the greater film and the most masterpiece. But the remake just knows what it's taking, and I think the remake can actually think of the original Lion King well. Like, it tries to make a live-action type of idea for the Lion King. And even though it is animated, it's trying to create realistic looks that the Lion King had, because the Lion King was always animated looks. I feel like the remake knew how much the original meant for all of us and wanted to create live-action atmosphere to see what it could look like for a live-action target. Okay, even if you still think I shouldn't like this movie, I did. And I will always love this film. Because this movie, it's great. It's always will be. It creates unique stuff. I don't really think any other Disney movie can create stuff this unique. 2001, A Space Odyssey. The 60s, if you already don't know, my personal opinion on the 60s era of movies isn't as good as any other. Not because I hate what the 60s had for its film industry, just because for someone like me, the 60s is way back there. And way back there are movies my grandma likes to think about before getting into the future world. But that's what 2001 A Space Odyssey does. It goes into the future world. This movie is kind of like the Star Wars of the 60s. Because it tries to change cinema. It tries to reimagine what we could see in future films. And I don't even know why I'm using the word try. It succeeded at bringing in new ideas for the film industry. The Space Odyssey actually does a very unique idea. The amount of dialogue the film has to offer is like one-page script. The entire movie is just a one-page script. But that's a good thing, because there's so much atmosphere in the movie. Like, there's so many shots, beautiful views, that I don't need that much dialogue. I just need to see what they're doing in this film. And everything they do in this movie, I will always consider to be something the 60s definitely deserve to have. The 60s brought us movies like Psycho, Good, Bad, and Ugly, but then you got 2001 A Space Odyssey, and you're just instantly blown by how much more your future of cinema will become. And you're hoping it would be a good thing, so, yeah. Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is a movie I talked about also when I said movies that exceed my expectations. And yeah, this exceeded my expectations. I didn't think it would be as epic as I heard people complaining about. But it is epic. Because it is an epic movie. I don't know what I expected. I just expected something I personally would not have the taste for. But I do have the taste for this movie. Because this movie has adventure. It has power, action. You've heard me talk a lot about this, haven't you? If you haven't, well, yeah, this movie has I admire this movie the same reason everyone else admires it. Unfortunately, however, if you have seen some of my other videos, I've talked about how much I don't like any of the sequels. Yeah, the whole franchise just isn't my thing. I love the original. This one is one of my favorites. The sequels, however, yeah, all three of them just aren't what I want. And even the fifth one that's planning to come out, I just don't want. Despite what I think about the sequels, the original is a great classic. Something I didn't think I'd see well of, but I see great possibilities that this movie gave me. So yeah, thank you, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't hate you.
However, here's one thing that I do hate. Waiting. Waiting sucks. And I bring this up because we have 2 more weeks until I can continue this list. It's the rules. I'm sorry. I know I made them up, but I'm making them up. They're the rules. We're going to have to wait 2 weeks until we can continue this list. You're just going to have to wait long. I'm sorry, but there's plenty of other better channels out there you can enjoy. There's a whole world out there you can enjoy. I don't care what you think of the world, because you have to enjoy it. I'm sorry, it's the rules. This isn't your biggest experience. Either way, we'll just have to wait. So tune in 2 weeks, because then that will be my top 10 favorite movies of all time for this year. And remember, last year's probably might be similar to this year's, but try to treat it like it's new, because according to my stupid book, it is new. Everything is new.